The good thing to know about the world, which is in a bad way, is that it can be changed. But how? By changing the way society thinks, what society allows to be done and what it forbids to be done. This is what politics is about. And I will explain by 3 examples what I mean by this. Shortly after Margaret Thatcher came to power in Britain in 1979, 500,000 people were out of work and unemployment rose to 1 million, to 1.5 million. And I remember when unemployment had reached 2 million, I started to predict Margaret Thatcher's downfall. Nothing of that kind happened. And when unemployment was 3 million, I remember contemplating that this could not have happened some decades earlier. Why? Because society would not have allowed it. There would have been such protests. But what I underestimated was the impact on neoliberalism. Thatcher had taught that there was no such thing as society, only competing individuals. And even if there were 3 million people out of work, there were more people who had work. And if their only concern was their own work, this meant that society would be quiet, in spite of this happening. And this is how British society had changed, or rather, this is how British society was being changed, because there are always doers. Now, the second example I want to take is from the other side of the Atlantic. The year is 1961, and I give you 20 seconds to guess whom I am quoting. The quote is this: "Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children." These are the words of Dwight D. Eisenhower, then the President of the United States, formerly the Chief General of the US Army, a Republican. This is what people in those days wanted to hear. People who had experienced Nagasaki and Hiroshima and the devastation of the Second World War. Under Eisenhower's presidency, the United States indeed carried out immoral actions, and the most sordid ones were, of course, covert. That is no coincidence. They had to be hidden. Society would not have tolerated them. And remember, when American society saw on their television screens the little girl running naked with napalm burns in Malay, it became clear to everyone that the war in Vietnam would come to an end. This was more than society would allow. But now nothing is hidden. There are no covert actions, they're not needed. Everything is in the open, and the world stomachs it so far. This brings me to the last example, namely how the arms race was halted in the 1980s, how it came about that thousands of nuclear warheads were taken out of use by a number of nuclear disarmament treaties. Now all such treaties have been discarded, and we know how rulers of the world are talking. This they are able to do because they are not meeting the public surge that swept through Europe and North America in the 1980s, demanding that we use our hearts and intellect to solve problems, not arms. There were millions of us in the streets, but it started only with a handful of people. It always does, but then it spreads. And this is the big lesson. Politics is about the way we think, and here every single person matters, because the way we think as individuals has a bearing on society at large. Now a wake-up call is needed. We start here, and before we know, there will be millions of us putting the world right, putting it on the right course. It can be done.